Hello and welcome back to Sitcom Showdown. It's Jeffers here and I'm with Steve. Hello, Steve.
Hello, listeners.
It's your turn, Steve.
Oh, yeah. It's my turn to do an actor.
Yeah, it's
Or
the
an
actor
actress.
special.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Been looking forward to this.
Mm.
And I've chosen a man who's famous for his hangdog, world-weary face.
Okay, good.
Geoffrey Palmer.
Oh, yeah. Oh, well, very good. Very well-known British.
OBE, don't you know?
Oh, okay. OBE, RIP.
Yes, now deceased,
Mm.
sadly.
Mm.
But as we're going to see, he had a rather remarkable body of work behind him.
Well, I'm keen to hear all about it.
All right, so let's get into it. Geoffrey was born in 1927. And after attending Highgate School, he did his national service in the Royal Marines just after World War II, which will be of interest later in the podcast.
Ah.
He did qualify as an accountant, but he'd always had a hankering for the stage, and his girlfriend persuaded him to sign up for a local dramatic society. Then he went on to the job as an assistant stage manager at the Grand Theatre in Croydon, and then he set out on an actor's apprenticeship, touring in rep, as so many of them did, Jeff. But he never formally trained as an actor.
Right.
He just got into it. So he started getting guest starring roles on TV in the 60s.
Mm.
We've had his IMDb page open, so that's when things start happening. He also got married to Sally Green in 1963. They had a daughter, Harriet, and a son, Charles, who went on to be a television director. And then in the 70s, he started a very spectacular run in sitcoms, which he's famous for, and obviously why I've chosen him.
Yeah.
Should we talk about some of those?
I reckon so.
Well, let's start with the rise and fall of Reginald Perrin, 76 to 79, as Jimmy Anderson, Reggie's brother-in-law. Yep, so there were 3 series of that, with Leonard Roster, of course. Then 78 to 83, he was in Butterflies, and he starred as Ben Parkinson,
Yeah.
husband
This
of
is
Rhea.
Yeah.
You remember this one?
This is the one I remember him from.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. I remember him in it.
Mm.
Yep. And there were 4 series of Butterflies, and that was written by Carla Lane,
Yeah.
who we know for Bread.
That wouldn't surprise me. Yeah, it was very much a family sitcom.
Doesn't sound like the premise for a happy sitcom, though, does it? Because she's disgruntled with married life, and she's contemplating dalliances or something like that.
Mm.
She's going to flutter off or something. I don't know. And then we've got an appearance in Fawlty Towers, Jeff. The Kipper and the Corpse, 1979 as Dr. Price.
Ah, yes, unforgettable.
One of 2 amazing guest starring roles.
Mm.
And then The Goodies in 1980
Yeah.
as the school headmaster in the episode called War Babies.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about that one?
Ah, that's the Clockwork Churchill. So it was
Right.
the very last Goodies episode for the BBC.
Oh,
So it was
that
at the
was...
very end of the run.
Huh.
And he played the headmaster of this school that the Goodies went to. A 4-year-old Bill or something with a huge beard, and 6-year-old Graham with mutton chops and all that. So they were literally children during the war going off to this boarding school. And Geoffrey Palmer played the headmaster. And then they gave the Goodies as young children the mission to go over the lines into occupied France or into Germany or something and get a cigar for Winston Churchill.
Right.
It's pretty out there, dude.
Okay. I thought you were going to say they had to paint a picture of no man's land.
That would be even better. Yeah.
Yes.
Let me send up a flare.
Perhaps with a few less elephants. And all right. Then he did another sitcom called The Last Song in 1981 as Leo Bannister. That was another Carla Lane sitcom for the BBC. Then he was in Whoops Apocalypse,
The movie?
1982.
Oh.
No, that was a series.
Was it really?
As the Foreign Secretary.
Oh.
Yes. And then...
It sounds like it should be a movie. It's not a very sitcom-y title.
No. Whoops Apocalypse.
Yeah.
Doesn't sound sitcom-y at all. Then he did Fairly Secret Army, which had 2 seasons, or series, between 84 and 86. And that was not a direct spin-off from The Fall and Rise of Reginald Perrin. But it was very similar, and it was written by David Nobbs as well.
Okay.
Yeah, so Geoffrey Palmer actually played the lead in that one.
Huh.
Yes. So that's quite an interesting one. And the first series of that was script edited by John Cleese.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Whose Training Films company was responsible for the series.
Right.
Yeah, so that Was that his first lead? No. Well, Butterflies was probably lead. Then in the first series of Executive Stress in 1986, he played Donald Fairchild the First. It's not Donald Fairchild the First, but he was the first Donald Fairchild because he was replaced in the later series by Peter Foles.
Yeah, Peter Bowles.
Why have I got Foles written
I
here?
don't know.
Oh.
I could be wrong. I always thought it was a B, not an F. Anyway, let's not worry about that.
Yeah, let's not
we'll get the
caught
listener
up in
to shout at us for...
Yeah, so let's not get caught up in the B's and F's.
Yeah.
So he in that series, he was the husband of Carolyn Fairchild, played by Penelope Keith.
Or as on the Sado podcast, they occasionally just say, as it's written on the page, Penelope Keith. Not
Nice.
Penelope.
No.
Yeah, you say it as it appears on the page. Yes. Anyway.
And in 86, he went on to...
I'm glad I haven't chosen Penelope Keith to be my choice for actor.
No.
Or it would have been a whole hour of me mispronouncing her name deliberately. Sorry, Steve. All right, yeah, so we're back on Geoffrey Palmer, back in the room.
That could be quite fun. In 86, he did Hot Metal. That was in the first series of that. Hot Metal refers to a printing press.
Oh.
That's set in a newspaper company. And I think it's by the same people that did Whoops Apocalypse.
Oh, yeah, so they've got a penchant or a penchant for naming their sitcoms with extremely unsitcom-y names.
Yeah, so I think he was the editor in that one. Now, I actually looked at choosing that for our feature episode to be discussed later.
What, you mean a sitcom with Geoffrey Palmer in a leading role? That would have made some sense.
I can see what you're getting at here. Yeah, but I couldn't find it on the YouTubes. So.
Oh, man. Sorry to, I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of technology and video sites and things, but were none of the other candidates any help, I wonder?
What other candidates?
What other candidates apart from YouTube? Oh, your Vimeos and the other pretenders. I thought perhaps some of the pretenders might have had some hidden away somewhere.
No, I couldn't.
No? Bummer. Oh, well,
I don't know if I even looked at those options, Jeff.
Oh, okay.
It does interest me, that sitcom. So I'd like to find it somehow in the future because it's got some interesting people in it.
Ooh.
Then we've got Blackadder Goes Forth. He guest starred as Field Marshal Douglas Haig in Goodbye, which was the final episode of the 4th season.
Haig?
Hello, Sir Douglas.
Who is it?
Captain Blackadder, sir.
Good Lord, Blackie.
Yes, sir.
Haven't seen you since...
92, sir. Umboto Gorge.
By jingo, yes. Yeah, we sure gave those pygmies a good squashing.
We certainly did, sir. And you remember...
My God, yes. You saved my damn life that day, Blackie. If it weren't for you, that pygmy woman with the sharpened mango could have seriously...
Well, exactly.
I'd totally forgotten about that.
89. Oh, mate, this is amazing.
Wow.
What a catalogue. And then we haven't even got to the one he's best known for, which is the next one, As Time Goes By. This is the one I thought you would have said you knew him best for. No,
that might have been a bit after my time where I was willing to watch any old stuff that the parents would sit us down in front of on the ABC.
Yep.
So I might have gone to my room and said, I'm not watching this.
Yeah, not watching these old fogies.
Yeah, that's right.
Anyway, that obviously was with Dame Judi Dench.
Oh, yeah.
And that was on the Beeb for 10 series.
Far out.
And specials. Unbelievable.
Yeah. And very wisely, when you've got work like that coming in, you stick with it as long as possible. So 10 years, yeah, holy moly.
But he did do stacks of films, which I haven't written down here. And was also in some Doctor Who, Jeff.
Yes. I remember that well.
The Silurians,
yes,
in 1970. The Mutants in 72.
Yep.
And one of the later ones, which we won't talk about. He got an OBE, as I think I've already said, in 2004 for services to drama. And then he passed away on the 5th of November 2020, so not so long ago, following a short illness aged 93.
Tell you what, yes, that's a pretty jolly good run, I reckon.
93?
Definitely.
Yep.
That's a good long life, that is.
It's a good innings. Yeah, so as you alluded to, I've chosen to feature him in an episode of The Fall and Rise of Reginald Perrin, and it's the 5th episode of season 3. I found it called both Theft and Time Bomb. in different places.
Okay.
Now, you're wondering why I chose this one, seeing he's not the lead in it,
Yep.
aren't you?
Yeah, no. Well, that
I'm
did spring to mind
I'm
because I was
anticipating
about, a good 5 minutes in and I was thinking,
Where is he?
what's going on here? Yeah, exactly.
No, just obviously I hadn't seen him in this before, so that was interesting to me.
Yeah.
But he's also much younger than I remember him in other roles, and he plays a military character, which is a bit different to anything I've seen him in before. So I thought, let's pick the episode of The Rise and Fall of Reginald Perrin, which highlights him the best.
Yeah.
For something different.
Yeah, and I don't want to anticipate what we're saying later on, but you do get, thanks to the dialogue and the acting and the sort of character he is, after just watching him interact with Reggie a few times. So you know what's going on. And that's good. So just before we move on to Geoffrey.
Launch into that, yes.
How much Reggie Perrin had you watched prior to selecting this episode to highlight young Jeffers?
0.
0. Oh, right. It's because, I remember you brought up
when
Leonard.
So when we did Rising Damp, I did look into it a little bit, but I didn't watch any.
Ah, okay.
But I skim watched three series of it.
Yeah.
In order to find this one, so
okay.
I know a bit about it.
Oh, cool.
It's quite interesting.
Because he is... I'm not fond of Leonard Rossiter.
You're not?
But...
You're not?
He's magnetic on screen in the way that you can't take your eyes off him and you can't take your ears off him, and he commands attention, Steve-O.
But why don't you
Leonard
like
Rossiter? Him? Oh, no, I probably just haven't watched, because the only Leonard Rossiter I've watched, as you well know, are the 2 episodes you've brought to Sitcom Showdown. So I'm sure if you gave it a bit of time, I watched a few more episodes of stuff, I'd be singing the Leonard Rossiter praises, no doubt.
Well, let's say a little bit about this show. As we've already said, Leonard Rossiter is the star of this one, and we previously saw him in Rising Damp, which was episode 64 of Sitcom Showdown. Plug, yes. Every opportunity. And this sitcom is based on a series of novels that were written by David Nobbs. Now, he also wrote for the 2 Ronnies, Jeff.
Ah. So he was in fine company there.
And I think you do see a bit of that in this episode as well, which we'll talk about later. So the original 3 series of this show were broadcast between 76 and 79, and then a 4th, The Legacy of Reginald Perrin, also written by Nobbs, was then put on in 96. Now that didn't star Leonard Rossiter. It didn't really have a main star, but if there was one, Geoffrey Palmer would be it. He was in it, returning as Jimmy.
It'd be like starting another series of Seinfeld now without Seinfeld.
Yeah.
It's 20 years since it ended.
Shows you how popular it was.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Boggles the mind. Sorry, Steve, after you. Right.
So I'm going to give you a summary of this show from IMDb, which was written by Darren Giddings. Good job, Darren. I'm ripping it right off here. Disillusioned after a long career at Sunshine Desserts, Perrin goes through a midlife crisis and fakes his own death. Returning in disguise after various attempts at finding a new life, he gets his old job back and finds nothing has changed. He is eventually found out, and in the second series has success with a chain of shops called Grot, Jeff, selling useless junk. That becomes so successful that he feels he has created a monster and decides to destroy it. In the third and final series, he has a dream of forming a commune, which his long-suffering colleagues help bring to reality. Unfortunately, that also fails, and he finds himself back in a job not unlike the one he originally had at Sunshine Desserts. Yes, Geoffrey plays Jimmy, Reggie's brother-in-law, and like many of Reggie's family and acquaintances, Jimmy is now working at the commune, and he's an ex-military man, so he doesn't have many skills or life experiences from outside of the army.
Oh.
And he's got very clipped speech, like
Tom Chance.
Tom Chance, yes, that's exactly what I've got written down here. So everything's abbreviated, and he is a bit of a failure at most things. So his catchphrase is bit of a cock up on the insert whatever the thing is front. Yes. Yeah. There's this funny episode where Jimmy arrives at the commune to work there, and I think it's the first morning he's on the job. He's up at the crack of dawn blowing a trumpet or a bugle or something like that to wake everyone up. It was quite amusing.
Very good.
So Reggie has to come out and settle him down a bit, lest he has an uprising or something like that.
Yeah.
So just as a bit of background to this episode, Jimmy had previously come up with the idea of forming a private army.
Righto.
And by the way, that was spun out into that other series that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
As a fully fledged idea. Anyway, he got ripped off by Clive Lofty Anstruther in Series 2. I think the deal was that Jimmy would give Lofty all this money.
Yeah.
Lofty would go wherever to get all the materials you would need for an army.
Okay.
But of course, Lofty didn't do the right thing. He took that and disappeared
Probably
somewhere.
Blew it all on, yeah.
And this was another one of Jimmy's failed adventures or schemes or whatever, which came to nothing. And then he had to get employed by Grot in the second series. But now he's getting employed by the Commune. So
wow,
he fails at things and then gets taken under Reggie's wing.
Yeah. Well, getting back to Lofty, he's also an ex-military man.
Clive Lofty Anstruther.
Yeah. Or does
he would appear to be
a stolen valor dude who was never in the... Okay, well...
You know the answer to this, Jeff.
Yeah.
The episode.
It's just that he also adopts those clipped sentences, delivery of exactly the same as, well, Tom Chance and Jimmy.
Yes, that's the persona that he puts out
there.
And even Lofty, wouldn't that be an army nickname or something like that?
Probably so.
Yes.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So how about we have a little bit of a clip, and then we'll go into a synopsis of the episode.
All right, cool.
Single to the terminus. What? Sorry, must have nodded off. Thought I was on holiday. Malta. Bus ride. Nice old bus is green. Instinct ticket system. Sorry. Not sleeping well. This business, Lofty taking both my medals. Morale shot to pieces. What's meeting all about? Rather missed that bit.
Low morale, Jimmy.
Treacherous chap, low morale.
Yeah.
Depressing sort of code.
Absolutely.
Well, I just had a good laugh at that clip.
Yes. All right, well, let's tell the people about this episode. We open with Reggie being interviewed on Pillock Talk. And he's there to advertise Perrins to the people, Jeff.
Oh.
One of the things I like about this show is that it's a bit strange, obviously a bit off kilter. Yes, so he's the interview's been going for a couple of minutes, and he's getting accused of monosyllabic talk by the host, who obviously thinks his guest is underperforming and not selling it. And then Leonard goes on this amazingly colourful and eloquent run about Perrins.
Yeah.
And can we insert a clip of that?
Certainly can.
What kind of people come to this community?
Well, at the moment, we've got a stockbroker, an overworked doctor, an underworked antique shop owner, a disillusioned imports manager, and an even more disillusioned exports manager. 3 sacked football managers, a fortune teller who's going to have a nervous breakdown next April, a school teacher who's desperate because he can't get a job, a school teacher who's even more desperate because he has got a job, an extremely shy vet, an overstressed car salesman, and a pre-stressed concrete salesman, people with sexual problems, people with social problems, people with work problems, people with identity problems.
That whole scene is brilliant, but I won't talk about it now because we're in clip time, so that's all right.
Yep. Well, I thought that could have been a Ronnie Barker monologue. Yes.
Are we on air at the moment, or are we not on air?
Oh, let's keep going.
Okay.
So based on this promotion and Reggie's amazing talents, another 22 guests turn up overnight at the Commune. This is going to stretch them to the limit, Jeff.
Yeah.
And it's the way they do things is that Reggie interviews each guest as they arrive, and I guess the idea is to find out why they're there and what they want to get out of the experience and what their needs are and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we've got Mr. Higgins, who is a bit of a lout. Self-confessedly a bit of a lout.
Subhuman, as he phrases it.
Right.
Yeah.
So what does he call himself? Subhuman filth or something?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Subhuman
He's,
yobbo.
Dressed like Sid Snot from Kenny Everett.
That's who I thought of.
Yeah.
We've got Mr. Johnson, a dissatisfied black schoolteacher who cannot get the sack for fears of racism.
Yep.
Clive Lofty Anstruther, the aforementioned Clive Lofty Anstruther, Jimmy's old business partner who cheated him, also arrives, and he's swearing he needs help with his redemption. But he does front up under other pretenses. That's not what he says when he comes in the door. That's what he says when Reggie twigs to the fact.
Yeah.
It's that Lofty.
Yeah, that's right.
And, calls him out on it. And he does look slightly nervous when Reggie says, "Oh, yes, you'll be able to see Jimmy this very night." Probably thinks he's going to get a bunch of fives.
Oh, he would have got several bunches of fives.
Yes. And then the last guest that we meet is Deborah Swaffham. How would you describe her?
I describe her as a lady in her potentially late 30s who is very manipulative in the romantic way and likes to claim a lot of scalps while not claiming any scalps.
Yes. She's a bit alluring, shall we say. Anyway, we move on from this series of interviews with the recently arrived guests, and Reggie and Jimmy are at the pub. Jimmy's just got a couple of pints in, I think, and Reggie announces that Lofty has arrived at Perrin's, and he's there for help. Jimmy goes, "That bastard!"
Yes. He's very cross. You would be very cross.
Yeah, but Reggie lays out the challenge before Jimmy. It's Jimmy's Everest.
It's Jimmy's Everest, yes.
Yeah. And before Jimmy knows which way is up, Lofty's arrived and asks forgiveness for a rotten show.
Yeah.
Yes, and all the time while this is going on, Reggie's like miming climbing Everest to Jimmy and giving him non-verbal encouragement.
And has to hold him back from throwing his fists around and stuff like that.
Yep.
But so this obviously plays into the whole point of Perrin's, which is for people to pursue self-improvement. So whatever your problem may be.
Yes, they're there to help.
They're there to help and help you grow as a person and, all these sorts of things. So this is a prime opportunity for Jimmy to do just that. But
he's supposed to be on the staff, so he's supposed to be helping the guests, but
and of course Reggie,
he's growing himself.
Yeah, well, Reggie does want to see Jimmy do well, and correct me if I'm wrong. But at the same time, I think more of it for Reggie is if things start kicking off and even the staff can't get with the program, this could potentially bring the whole thing falling down, and so we've got to... I've got to make sure that Jimmy does the right thing. No.
He's definitely managing the situation the best he can.
Yeah.
Shall we insert a little clip?
Jimmy, would you say you were a charitable, forgiving sort of chap?
Or other cheek, moat and beam, that sort of crack?
Yes.
Every time, Reggie, every time.
Ah, good, because I've asked you here tonight to meet Clive Lofty Anstruther.
That bastard.
Jimmy, faith and trust, moat and beam, other cheek. No, Jimmy. The community faces its greatest challenge, and this is its greatest test. This is your Everest.
Message received and understood. Got to be nice to him because
he's here.
Jimmy? Anstruther. What do you have? Large whiskey. Same for Reggie. Bastard.
Everest.
All right.
Now we cut to a staff meeting after the Lofty and Jimmy reunion. Doesn't the team look great in their tracksuits, Jeff?
Certainly. Yeah.
And Reggie's congratulating them on their teamwork. Everything is going splendidly. They have an open forum where you can make suggestions and this sort of thing. And Jimmy, who's clearly on a roll at this point, suggests that Perrin send out an anti-vandalism squad into the streets to keep the subhuman filth off the streets, which I think is remarkably similar to his private army idea. So we just keep circling back to the same thing or a different version of the same thing. And he suggests that they take large wooden clubs with them.
Like Perrin's peacekeeping force.
Yes.
Or something. On what scale are we talking here? I mean, is this just going out into the local neighbourhood and doing that? Or is he talking on it?
We'll move to the national wide scale later.
Okay.
We've got to build up to it. Then we move on to an idea of Reggie's, which is Anti-Self-Consciousness Month.
Aww.
And he asks the team for ideas to help... What? You're scoffing at this one?
No, it's just because I can see we're about to go down a certain pathway, Urgle.
Yeah, so Reggie does ask for ideas to help the guests develop this sense of anti-self-consciousness. And CJ, he runs something up the flagpole, And he suggests to defeat the self-consciousness of the long-distance commuter by a role-playing exercise in a train where they're going to take some guests along and to pretend to be commuters on the train. And what they're going to do is end every sentence with the word Urgle. What do you think about this one? Lost for words.
I am.
But it's a brilliant idea, Jeff.
Wow. Yeah, no, didn't he say like it's, my idea is ridiculous, and Reggie's looking for ridiculous ideas. He wants people to behave ridiculously, and, he complimented the idea because of its ridiculousness.
I think you have to appreciate Reggie's sense of self-sabotage.
Oh, that's always a highlight of great
You bring along a team of incompetent people, ask them for ideas, and then implement them.
Yeah, Urgle.
Yeah, Urgle. He wants things to go wrong. Anyway, so they go along to this train and try out
there's no role play. They do this for real.
Well, so the listeners, what you have to appreciate is that they go into the skit or whatever you want to call that they're doing in the train, and after about 30 seconds, the real commuters bail out of the carriage, and these guys just keep going on.
Yeah.
They're loving it.
Yeah, so they've thought, I'm just trying to read my newspaper on my normal everyday trip to work. And there's all these crazy people in here who keep ending most of their words with Urgle.
Yes.
And I can't concentrate on my paper. I've had enough of this. So they get up and storm out.
I'm out of here.
Yeah.
You can't relate to it, can you, Jeff? That's the problem.
No, not really.
Can you, Urgle? So next we get a glimpse of the anti-vandalism squad on the streets. And
in their white T-shirts.
They find some youths who are kicking in some daisies or something like that.
Yep.
In a garden.
Ruining the park.
And the team or the squad comes around the corner chasing them, and Jimmy's basically, it looks like he's picked up a knife or something, and he's sprinting after this poor teenager or something like that.
Yeah.
Reggie's, trying to rein him in. Jimmy.
No. Yeah. And then they do a bit of a close-up on the knife.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He picked it up off the ground, which looked a bit...
So it might have looked like the teenagers, yeah.
Was it supposed to be dropped by one of the...
By one of the hooligans.
Yeah.
They looked like very mid-20s hooligans. I don't think they captured the essence of the British hooligan of the time.
No. Anyway, so that seems to be going all right. And then we've got a session where they're trying to... The group in the session is trying to break down self-consciousness about sex. The joke being that the guy who's facilitating... This can't even say the word sex.
No, he says, and then Reggie will come in and bail him out and actually say the word for him.
That's it. Now, can you, seeing as you are reading my mind tonight, can you...
Oh, good.
Can you think what I'm going to say next about group work
group therapy
on sexual issues?
No.
Okay.
Well,
you're failing me now.
Linking it to another sitcom or a writer.
I am, exactly.
Yeah.
Do you remember Louise? In Dear John, she was the group leader.
Oh, yes. Well,
now, what was her catchphrase,
Dear
Jeff?
John wouldn't have immediately sprung to mind.
Dear John. What was her catchphrase, Jeff?
I can't remember her catchphrase.
Were there any sexual problems?
Yes. She asks that of everybody.
That wasn't it. Just in case the listener hasn't seen that one. This particular group were there. They were divorcees or singles or... Yeah, it was more for lonely people or people healing from relationship issues and stuff like that. But she would try and turn the conversation constantly back to sex. So,
yes, and just again, Geoffrey Palmer. We're going to. I'm wondering now. This was definitely the American version of Dear John, but I do wonder if the British character had the same catchphrase.
I don't know.
I'm
so focused on Geoffrey Palmer.
But the good thing is, it gives us an opportunity to plug, which might have been the first ever actor special. Anyway, it was Judd Hirsch. So if you fancy it, listener, you can go back and listen to that actor special on Judd Hirsch.
Yes, good old Judd. So this group they have to take turns in speaking about sex for 1 minute. There's no hesitation, no repetition or deviation from the topic.
Are you familiar with Just a Minute, Steve-O?
No, this is not something I'm familiar with.
I'm sure it still goes today.
What do you mean?
Just a Minute. It's a radio panel show. So you've got to speak on a topic.
I have heard this. Yeah.
And then you're not allowed to use the same word or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not a huge fan of Just a Minute, but I can appreciate what a massive challenge it must be to be able to...
So is that what they're basing this?
Yeah, they're using the Just a Minute format And you have to talk about sex for a minute without, trying to not talk about it or use euphemisms or repeat yourself.
Maybe we should try and do the rest of the podcast with no hesitation, repetition, or deviation.
No, we have to repeat because we have to talk about Geoffrey Palmer. Imagine if we couldn't say his name again in the whole podcast. That'd be difficult, wouldn't it? Who? Yeah, that's right.
Oh, I almost got you. It turns out, we find out towards the end of this session that one of the guests has lost 15 quid. And another one of the shy people, confesses that he's also lost 10 pounds. Anyway, Reggie calls a meeting and he says to the guests, look, there's going to be no further action on this, but he calls upon the culprit to do the right thing and cease their crime spree henceforth.
Yes, which will prove that the Perrin method is working and people are becoming better people. So do the right thing, don't pinch any more cash.
And hand back the cash. Hitherto being taken.
Well, again, I don't want to go down another rabbit hole, but this is an opportunity for something I love to do, which is to play around of how much was X worth in X.
Yes.
So, just thinking about
quid.
how much 10 or 15 quid was worth in, let's call this 1979. All right. So this immediately put me in mind of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, Steve.
Right.
Which is about
really
1979, 1980, right? So exactly the same time period. And so Ford Prefect is taking Arthur off to the bar because he's trying to convince Arthur that his house being knocked down does not matter. They've got to eat as many peanuts and drink as many pints as they can before Ford buzzes them up to the spaceship to escape Earth being blown up.
Yep.
And he goes into the bar and he says to the barman, something like, I'll have 12 pints of lager and as many nuts as you can handle, to the point where Ford Prefect leaps over the bar and just starts grabbing straight out of the box packets of nuts. And he gives the barman a $5 and says, keep the change, bro.
You're kidding.
And the barman is like, from a $5? Thank you, sir. All this beer and all those nuts and crisps would have cost maybe £2. And then the barman was like, man, I get £3 in change I get to keep. That's like the equivalent of 84 beers or something. And I just watched
Unbelievable.
Hitchhiker. So I think a pint must have been like 10p or 15p or 20p at this point in time in 1979 Britain. And that's after a huge inflation thing.
In Thatcher's Britain.
In Thatcher's Britain? Yes. Anyway, I always seize upon any opportunity to think about, what would this have been back in the day, or what would that have been? So thank you for indulging me.
Welcome.
I hope this survives the
I'm
end.
always interested in the price of beer.
Yeah.
4 decades ago.
Yeah.
No, that's good. If I ever time travel back to 1979, I'll know how much cash to take with me.
Excellent.
Yes, and then there's a further meeting because there's been more thefts. It's a testing time, Jeff.
Yeah.
But to put the criminal to shame, for sure this time, they're going to illustrate the power of the community in an act of faith and trust. And
my goodness.
The instruction is that everyone should leave their valuables lying around. Don't you think this is going to work? Surely it is. Well, there's another meeting.
It's an opportunity for personal growth.
Yes, it is. Unfortunately, it's a wasted opportunity for personal growth because now they've had a total of £382, and imagine how many pints you could get for that, stolen. 4 watches, 3 rings and 2 bracelets are gone. And Reggie, he's lost faith at this point, and he says,
"Oh yeah,
help me nail the sod."
Yeah, he's completely changed his tune. He's done a total 180.
Yes,
and not surprisingly too, because this has driven a wedge right into the heart of the community and could split everything apart. It's awful, Steve.
Well, we're about to find out that the guests have been leaving in droves because Reggie's reading some letters from them, explaining that they had to depart because of all this business going on. And he also gets a letter from Clive, Lofty and Struther confessing to the crimes. And it turns out that he also stole Jimmy's medals.
Oh, that is the last straw.
That is...
You can't steal a man's medals. Yeah.
No, you can't. Yes, so, by the way, if you go back to the meetings that they had where people are putting their hands up saying, I lost this and I lost that, Lofty puts his hand up at one point in those meetings and he says, I lost blah, 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 whatever. Oh, he's such a dirty dog.
He is. I thought it was our friend, Mr. What's his name, right? The subhuman filth, right?
Yeah.
But
well, you wouldn't want to steal from him, would you?
Well, you wouldn't want to steal from him, no.
What would happen?
He'd punch your lights out.
Without a second thought.
He'd give you a good stomping.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, so that That's like one of the plots, or subplots, or whatever you want to say, we've got going on in this episode. Now, we haven't forgotten about Deborah, who is still at Perrin's.
Seducing everybody.
Yes, so she's getting a bit of culture in a small group session with one of the staff members, and they're reading Antony and Cleopatra together. Yes, nice bit of culture there. And she asks the staff member how he thinks Cleopatra would have kissed, and they have a bit of a snog.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they're on like one of those
swinging benches,
swinging outdoor chairs or whatever they are.
Yeah.
And she invites him to her room tonight in a very roundabout way. This is her modus operandi. But when he arrives, she is out, and we find that she's actually playing soccer with another group of people from the commune, led by Tom, one of the staff members, and she coyly invites Tom back to her room. But also, when he gets there, she's nowhere to be found. So this is just what she does. She's leading people on, and it's going nowhere. Now we've got a staff meeting about low morale, and Reggie wants to nip it in the bud.
Yep.
And asks for suggestions. Again, it's an open forum.
Well, sorry. Yeah.
It doesn't take very long for CJ to suggest getting rid of Deborah.
No.
And he relates his experience with her, followed by the doc, who had a similar experience with her. So we're having this group discussion about getting rid of Deborah, which is interrupted by Jimmy, who's been awakened from a dream about a holiday that he once took in Malta, because he's not sleeping well after his experience with Lofty having stolen his medals and everything else. So we get more Deborah stories, and the meeting breaks down into complete chaos. And Reggie's about to throw the towel in when his wife Elizabeth suggests sending Deborah to their sex therapist. Okay. And then Jimmy's fallen asleep and woken back up again, and he shouts out, "Why don't you have Red Rovers, you Maltese fool?" I looked up Red Rovers. I thought they must have been some kind of a sweet or
that's what I thought,
like
a crisp or a
The only Red Rover I could find was the game that kids play, the rough and tumble.
Oh, that. Okay, yes.
So I don't know what he was raving on about, but who knows, it was a dream. And so then we go to the scene where Deborah's meeting with the sex therapist, and of course she seduces him, invites him to her room, and it turns out that she's not there when he arrives. But then we get Reggie turning up at Deborah's room, and he's there to sort things out. And she locks him in and puts the key down her cleavage to try seducing him. But he's so professional, Jeff, he goes out the window instead. This is on the first floor, right?
He certainly does, but the poor old drain pipe isn't quite up to supporting poor old Reggie.
No, so the downpipe bends and he falls. Now we've got Elizabeth tending to his wounds, and his shirt's all ripped open and whatnot. And he's saying it couldn't get any worse. And just as he's saying that, Clive Lofty Anstruther returns. He turns up wanting help, for real this time. But he's blown all the money that he stole and hocked Jimmy's medals.
And when you consider how much money £380 was back in the day. Sorry, yes, Steve, what does he say?
What does Reggie say?
You bastard.
You bastard. So, yes.
What a way to end it.
Exactly. Just a bit of trivia. The ending every word with Urgle joke was previously used by David Nobbs in Season 1, Episode 6 of The Two Ronnies.
So he's thought, I've got some good mileage with this last time. Yep. I'm going to recycle that nugget of gold.
Yep.
Pure genius. Look, while we're on Clive Lofty Anstruther, he's very much in the tradition of Clive from Heidi High. So Heidi High had a couple of different camp commandants, I'll call them, even though they're not commandants. Sorry, I'm still back in Hogan's Heroes a few episodes ago with Colonel Clink.
Yep.
But camp leaders, the administrator, big boss. And the second one that they had was diametrically opposed to the first guy, who was a very clean-living, upstanding chappie. And the second one was an ex-fly boy. He was pretty much Flash Heart.
Yeah. Wow.
But his name was Clive, and he was a womanizer and a stealer, and he was always pinching money and borrowing money off people and not paying them back and all that sort of stuff.
Oh dear.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if Heidi High came along in like 83, 84 and was inspired by Clive Lofty Anstruther. Yeah, just a thought.
Just talking about people who remind you of people. What would you think if Gordon Brittis could you see him almost doing something like this kind of a caper?
Yeah, I could. Yeah.
Leading a commune to help people.
Exactly. Reggie's
with the best
far
of
more
intentions.
self-aware than Brittis
yes.
ever is. But no, completely, Steve. I totally agree. I could see that. Yes, and I was just thinking earlier, talking about British Empire, that their sex therapist who can't even talk about the subject is, like the sex therapy equivalent to Colin at British Empire. Colin, who's
the least healthy person.
The least healthy person in Britain. And he's, at some stage, don't they say, like he's a fully qualified personal trainer and health demon,
serious?
Apart from just being the caretaker and all this sort of stuff.
That's quite the contrast between Colin and the other young, fit
people that
help out. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I think maybe that's why they eased him into the caretaker role, so as to keep him away from the customers. Anyway, This isn't a British Empire episode.
No. It is The Fall and Rise, Reginald Perrin. Look, I'm not nominating this one.
Oh, that's
for the
not
Hall of
how
Fame.
these actor specials work, is it?
No, it's not.
Oh, Lord.
So I just thought we'd have a little bit of a few gags and a few thoughts and then end it.
Nice one.
Yes.
Well, the good thing about Geoffrey Palmer is he does play the straight man quite a bit, but his delivery of lines to squeeze maximum humour out of them while still remaining the straight man, I'm not quite sure how he does that. It's remarkable.
Yeah, I found him really, really good in the ex-military role. And obviously, like we talked about, he did his national service soon after World War II, so it's something he just slid into naturally, maybe. Absolutely brilliant job. And that scene in the pub is just complete gold.
Yeah.
As soon as I watched that, I thought, no, this is the one. So that was just fantastic. Now, I thought the idea to run Anti-Self-Consciousness Month when they've got a thief and an nymphomaniac in the residence was perhaps not the best. What did you think?
No, I agree.
And that fails, and then when they continue with the strategy of openness, more things get stolen, and the sex therapist gets seduced. So it all completely falls apart. Does Jimmy didn't get seduced?
Because he's a robot of a man. Yep. He's mission focused. He can't be distracted from whatever the mission happens to be by mere female attention.
Worldly pleasures.
Yeah, worldly pleasures. Thank you very much.
He needs all his strength to chase the youths down.
Yeah.
With a club.
Or a knife. Yeah, certainly. So I'm looking over his IMDb here, and he plays a lot of doctors, and as we mentioned earlier, he's played the schoolmaster, the headmaster. He plays military figures.
So it's authority figures.
Authority figures, yeah. Oh, he's got an air traffic controller here.
And I guess being the straight man goes with authority figure, doesn't it?
Yeah. Oh, in Doctor Who, he was Permanent Undersecretary Masters.
Well, that's quite the handle.
Mm-hmm. I'm just wondering, when he was in these relationship sitcoms, I mean, did you spare a moment or two to watch an episode of Butterflies or
I certainly
Executive
watched
Stress? Or
Butterflies. That would have been one that we would have watched.
Oh, no, I mean recently in preparation for this.
No. No, certainly not.
Because then in those, like I'm looking at Executive Stress, and of course he's an executive, and Penelope Keith's an executive and all that sort of stuff. So there's no military, no doctors, none of that. And it's quite a different role. Mm-hmm. But I'd not seen him play this type of character before, because I'm used to him being in those sort of more...
Well, that's why I brought it along, Jeff.
Yeah, so it's very good.
Have you got any gags written down?
Yes, I have, because when Reggie's talking about, right, okay, we've got a thief here and we've got to nip this in the bud, and then he follows it up with a brilliant line, we've got to find out which buds and how they should be nipped. And as Rowan H.G. once said, he's always talking about nipping and buds. And just like the way he interrupts the host, Mr. Pillock, as well. He says, I'm sorry, I just can't get over your name.
Yep.
Oh, my goodness.
Certainly, Reggie doesn't have the appearance of someone who's nervous about appearing on TV.
No. Right, what gags did you have apart from the ones you mentioned? Have you got any one-liners or anything?
Well, I've got a few things here. During the sex therapy session, when Reggie comes in, the therapist sums up where they've been to so far in the session.
Yeah.
And they say that Deborah Swaffham was stopped for deviation.
Within the first 4 seconds or something.
But the implication is that it wasn't the kind of...
It
wasn't a deviation from the topic. It was some kind of other deviation.
Yeah. But yes, and Reggie was very good at knowing exactly how each person would have performed using the just a minute method. He's a good judge of character. Yeah, except for when he's giving people the benefit of the doubt
when he's
with
giving
their thieving.
The thief a second and third chance. Then in the staff meeting, Jimmy says, "I've been thinking, Reggie." And Reggie says, "As I say, this has been an amazing success." If Jimmy's thinking,
Yeah. Well,
it's an amazing success. Classic put down on your brother-in-law. Then after Jimmy suggested this the
peacekeeping squad?
The peacekeeping squad.
Yeah.
He says, "Fighting for peace is like making love for virginity."
Yeah. He's got to point that out to Jimmy.
Yeah. In the letter that Superintendent Potts has written to Reggie to announce his departure from Perrin's,
oh yes,
he says, "Must there be crime everywhere I go?" He's a policeman.
There's going to be crime everywhere. Human beings are. But
That's
yes,
right.
I know, yeah.
When they're talking about Deborah Swatham in the staff meeting to fight low morale, CJ says, "It's been a long time, Reggie, and I forgot myself."
Yeah.
With Deborah Swatham.
Well, he's getting on a bit.
Yeah. And CJ continues on and he says, "She said, I have an unsexy body. I said, you haven't seen mine."
Yeah, I'm sure he thought he was making a certain point there, but ended up making a completely different one.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the way she did things. She was fishing for compliments and all that sort of stuff. Yep. That's the end of my list.
And he made it all about him.
Yeah.
In an extremely unflattering way.
What did you think about it overall?
Yeah.
Obviously, we're landing you in almost at the end of the whole 3 series. But I think you get... it doesn't take too long to pick up.
No, you immediately figure out what sort of character Reggie is. You figure out what sort of character Jimmy is. You figure out his wife gets a really good, rousing speech. So you figure out the essence of her character. And, I think just this is extremely well-written show. I'm not familiar with this bloke who writes it, I must say. And I completely missed all of these sitcoms. I mean, give me a break. I was only a toddler, damn it. But anyway, the superbly well-written sitcom, I've got to say. Good cast. Yeah, as I say, Leonard Rossiter is magnetic, but I don't... He creeps me out, man, but I'm keen to watch more. So yes, in answer to your actual question, it totally piqued my interest, and I would watch more of Reggie Perrin.
There you go.
Yeah, I totally would.
It's all on the YouTubes, dude.
So yes, Geoffrey Palmer definitely played a role in this. I've not seen him play before, but I am beginning to realise, as you and I looked at his IMDb, that really the characters I know him best for in that pair of sitcoms are not the ones he usually played. It's just that he played them for 10 years or so.
Yeah, I'm astounded that we've never done anything with him in it before. There
are some people that slip under the radar.
Yep, well... He's not slipping under our radar anymore.
No, absolutely not.
Geoffrey Palmer, you're in the Hall of Fame.
Absolutely, and there's very few people in there.
Yep,
he's the fifth, isn't he?
It's a select group.
Yeah.
Yes, he's the fifth.
That's right.
Yeah, so thanks for joining me on that little expedition, dear listener, and Jeff. And what's coming up next month, Jeff?
Yeah, next time it's my turn to choose an actor, and of course I'm not going to reveal who that is at this point in time. Yes, so that's what's happening next month.
Righto.
Yeah, these are tremendously fun, Steve. We should do a year of actor specials. No, it'd be the Hey and Actor podcast, and then we'd be in... They'd punch us up for ripping them off.
Yes, we'd be in competition.
Yes, with the Wilson brothers. If you've never checked out Hey and Actor, it might be worth checking that out, dear listener. And,
it might be.
Yeah.
That's hardly a ringing endorsement.
Well, I stopped listening to them. So, look, while we're here,
that's
Steve...
That's the best we can do.
At the very end of the episode. Yeah, that's right. Look, let's... I wanted to plug the Sado podcast again, which is the Sitcom Archive Deep Dive Overdrive, right, with Eggs and Al. Now, they gave us some feedback on the topic of drunk acting.
Whoa.
Because you'll remember in the episode before this one, we were talking about some of the great drunk actors, of course, and we always put Bernard Black at the top of the list.
Yes.
But they were talking about a particular episode of The Good Life, which they had been covering at the time, where all 4 of the cast members got really hammered. And
it's because everyone poured themselves scotches.
Huge gin and tonics.
3 fingers
Yeah.
Three-finger portions back in those days.
Anyway, so the feedback from Eggs is that
what have they got?
he said he'd agree that Dylan Moran is the king of drunk sitcom acting, of course. But in their episode talking about The Good Life, they examined the different styles used by the 4 Good Life actors. The aforementioned Penelope Keith, and of course, then you got Felicity Kendall and the great Paul Eddington.
Felicity Kendall.
Yeah. And Richard Bryars. So that's the 4. They're 4 heavy-hitting sitcom stalwarts. So the point they made in this episode called The Windbreak War is that the men did very over-the-top drunk acting and the ladies were more reserved in their drunk acting. But either way, they nominated Penelope Keith as the best drunk actor in that episode in terms of realism.
Interesting.
And that got me thinking, do we value realism over stupidity when it comes to drunk acting?
No.
So, different horses for different courses.
Yes, I think so.
All right, very good. Because
this title, The Windbreak War.
Yes. It's not breaking wind.
It's nothing to do with farting.
No, it's an argument over fence lines and such.
Let me guess, they put a windbreak up to stop their veggies from getting blown over or something.
Well, it's about the moving of a windbreak and then a misunderstanding in classic, sitcom way. And then the windbreak gets moved again and blah, 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 blah. Anyhow, we've looked at Geoffrey Palmer this time around. And good on him for getting into the Sitcom Showdown Actor Hall of Fame. And well-deserved.
Yes, all right. Well, let's sign off now and say farewell, listeners. We'll see you in a month or so.
Cool. Join us next time on Sitcom Showdown when we'll be putting another 5-star episode under the microscope. And in the meantime, you can contact us with feedback on Facebook, Twitter @Sitcom Showdown, or by email sitcomshowdown@gmail.com.